Get ready, where's the 67? Yeah, yeah. Get ready, it's barely down the line. Get ready, my heart's a rubber-dubbing. Yeah, yeah. Get ready, you know we're feeling fine. Well, it's breakfast with Bob. Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's breakfast with Bob.
Poncho Man, loving that. Again, this is day 2 of Breakfast with Bob. We are brought to you by EAS Sports Nutrition, by Hoka One One, Polar, Oscar Wellness, VeloFix. Our championship edition will be at Four Seasons Hualalai, and we are broadcasting on triathlonworld.com. My next guest, seriously one of the coolest guys around. He's got the best stash in the sport, Mr. Lionel Sanders. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, Bob. Thanks for having me on.
I love it. It was great meeting you last year, and you had, I think, a great debut, 14th place. I'm sure that that's getting that out of the way, finding out what this race is all about. Talk a little bit about that first experience here.
Yeah, well, I think the race history says it's kind of cruel to the first-timer, and I don't know if it was super cruel to me, but it certainly was a challenging day, and I mean, I think a lot of people said it was like the hottest day they had remembered in 10 or 15 years. So
they say that every year, by the way.
Sure. All right. It certainly doesn't feel nearly as hot this time around this year.
No.
So I think that's good. But yeah, I made a lot of mistakes. Like I wore a 2-liter Camelback on the bike. And
like right away from the start. From when you got on the bike?
Yes, and and I was super anal about staying well hydrated, and I think I may have taken that a little bit too far. And
how many? You also have big water bottles too.
Yeah, I mean, I had 4 full 750 milliliter water bottles with the 2-liter Camelback, and that's like an extra 10 or 12 pounds of weight on a course that has a net uphill for the first 100 kilometers. Just mistakes that you would expect from someone who has not done the race before, and. I'm happy with the performance,
right.
and under those conditions and everything, it was very, very, very good race. So
what did you take from that's going to help you this year?
It's amazing how much thought goes into a lot of the guys, what they're doing. Like, for instance, I remember talking to Tyler Butterfield after, and he ran track tires, for instance, and he was basically all in. He's like, I'm going for the least rolling resistance on the tires, and if I get a flat, then it's over. But I'm all in.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize people are so invested in this race, and so you need to make sure that every little aspect of your race is completely fine-tuned. And from an aerodynamic perspective, this race really showed me that's very important. And after the race, I certainly updated all my bottles and that sort of thing, and took the Camelback off, and went into the velodrome, did some aerodynamic testing, refined my position a bit, and those sorts of things from a technical perspective. But as well, I wasn't doing the best type of training either. I was sort of insecure about being able to cover the full Ironman distance.
Yeah.
And in practice, leading into the race, I'd probably done about 15 4+ hour bike rides, all over 300 watts, which, like at Ironman Texas, I rode 301 watts and went 411. So, that's massive taxation to do that 15 times beforehand. By the time I got here, was pretty much fried and had my worst bike ride here of the year.
And wattage-wise, you couldn't hold anywhere near what you've been holding in training.
No, unfortunately not. And I had done a lot of hard rides in the heat too, so it certainly, the heat obviously plays a role, but I had trained for that. I think I was just deeply, deeply fatigued. And I did away with that sort of training. I didn't do any Ironmans this year, for instance. I decided to focus on the 70.3 and really try and get my upper limits as high as I could. And I think that'll pay dividends, out there at 15 kilometers to go or so on the run when we see who has that deep-seated fatigue and who doesn't.
Well, the other thing that you did here last year is besides carrying the bottles and dealing with the heat, you went home afterwards, and didn't you spend more time this year in training indoors? And you've been hit by cars like 4 times or something. So
yeah, I had been hit 4 times. Like, these are false teeth in the front. I woke up one day on the strap to a board, didn't know who I was, didn't know how I got inside the ambulance, and so I've been scared off the road a little bit, and then also. I had a bursal sac inflammation I got from running on ice one time through a Canadian winter, and so I started to run on the treadmill too. And I think I took that idea a little too far, and last year I did completely all of my training indoors. And when I got here, the sun and all the elements were just so I was not used to it. And it really, I did come 3 weeks in advance of the race to do training here, but I really still was not fully adapted to the conditions. So this year I've done a lot more training outside, and I think, you know, being out in the sun and that sort of thing hasn't nearly had the negative effect that it had last year.
But you have a room at home, right, that has a treadmill, has your CompuTrainer, and then you've got,
I got my sauna in there too. I got my heat lamps.
And what is that temperature in that place?
I mean, the highest I've ever got is about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've had it to the point where the walls are sweating, so it's completely saturated.
And you'll be in there for how long?
One time I went in there for so long that I actually stopped sweating. Like
that's not good.
You know what I mean? I was like basically heat exhaustion. I was in the sauna. So I would do like a 4-hour bike ride in those conditions, then get into the sauna, and the sauna's 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And I literally was not sweating whatsoever and actually felt kind of cold. And that's probably the time where you should get out of the sauna at that point.
Yeah, get out.
So, I mean, once again, that's sort of my personality. I've gone, you know, headstrong in one direction as far as I can go, and probably not the best way to go about it. So I've definitely eased back off that.
Yeah.
And now I've come to the conclusion, you know, I mean, you don't need to do all your workouts in the heat. If anything, you should do like your easy rides and that sort of thing in the heat, and continue to do your real quality stuff in more optimal conditions, so you can really push those limits. But then you get the sort of adaptive side in your easy rides and that sort of thing.
So you go to Mooloolaba, and last year I know you came here about 3 weeks early and felt that you might have gotten a little stale being here. And then you're also seeing the guys you're racing against. It almost becomes a little kumbaya-ish.
Yeah.
And this year you came back from Mooloolaba back home, right? And maintain your regular training.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I found here is it's just so chill here. Like, it's hard not to be. It's hard, like, you know, you're sitting out on the lanai, having your coffee. It's so relaxed, and you know, that's all fine and dandy for vacation and stuff, but I'm not really here on vacation.
I'm
here
to win a race.
To do basically the hardest sporting event, you know, on the planet.
Yeah.
And certainly the guys you're going, I learned this last year, like Yan and the top guys were coming in only a week or so in advance, and I totally get why. Just, you want to stay hungry, you want to stay fired up, you want to stay angry, because with 12K to go on that run, it's who wants it more, who's angry, who's doing it for a reason, and not I'm just chilling and stuff.
I'm waiting to get to the lanai.
Yeah, no, and that's sort of you know, I certainly had that attitude a little bit, and so yeah, this time around I only came 6 days in advance, and I think it's been good.
Like that. So for people who don't know your story, they can tell from listening to this interview that you're pretty dedicated, and when you decide to go for something, you go full bore. Back in the day, you had drug issues, right? And as a talented runner, younger, you sort of moved away from that part of your life in high school and ran with the wrong crowd and went down a pretty bad path. And I think there was like a run in November of 2009 when you realized that, you know what, I've got to make a change here.
Yeah, well, it's interesting how your personality shows up in anything you do, and so what has been when I sort of got into partying and that stuff, the same thing that's leading to success now, that sort of
you were a good partier.
Very. I took that in that same direction, and so, you know, I think eventually you just kind of come to terms with your personality and learn to direct it into a more positive outlet. And I hit rock bottom on many occasions, really, and woke up in the detox many times, not knowing how I got there. And but yeah, eventually I said, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror, quite frankly. Like I hated who I was. I hated what I'd become, and I just came to the point where I was like, something's got to change. Like, it's really just a matter of life and death now, because if I keep down this pathway, I will just result in death, and a premature death, really. And so I had stopped running for many years, but for some reason running was like the most familiar thing to me.
Yeah.
And you know, I was a runner in high school, and so I went out for a run, and it was November 5th, 2009, and I did that for like a month straight. But and I understand why now, because, you know, I had depleted like my dopamine stores and that sort of thing. So it took a long time to come back, but I felt like I needed something more. And fortunately, it was right around that time, winter of 2009, where the idea to do an Ironman triathlon popped into my head. And well, I signed up for Ironman Louisville, and I've basically been on that journey for the last 6 years.
Well, what I love is the fact that your parents, because I'm sure there were a lot of times where it's, hey, I need a little help, and you know, that money went in the wrong direction. And now you're saying, hey, Mom and Dad, I want to go do Ironman Louisville, but I sort of need you to.
Yeah. It was. My mom's right over here, and fortunately, she
very special woman.
She gave me her credit card number, and because the Ironmans are rather expensive for someone who's not really working or anything. And I didn't have a bike or anything, so I had to save up and
save up for that. I
didn't have a gym. No, the morning of or a couple of days before the race, I realized I'm like, I don't even have anything to wear for the swim. Like I got like big baggy shorts and stuff, and once again, Mom came with the credit card, and
you also had no way to get there.
And I had no way to get there, unfortunately. And all these things, obviously, I didn't think about this too deeply beforehand. I didn't have a hotel room or anything.
Yeah.
And fortunately, they came through the whole way around, and I was able to get a nice kit, and I was able to get a ride there and a hotel room and food before and after, and et cetera. Things that you probably should think about before entering in an Ironman. But
what happened from that is it changed the direction of your life, because you go there and you got lapped by
Paul Ambrose.
By Paul Ambrose, who's winning the race, right? He beat you by a couple hours, but you loved it. It was like you saw him go by, and you're like, wow, this is the coolest thing.
Yeah, that was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. Even till this day, I don't know if I've had an experience that you say when you see a guy, I'm giving absolutely all the effort I have in my entire being, and this guy's just flying by me like it's like he's got an engine or something in him propelling him. But and I was like, that is just amazing that a human being can do that. And I think that's where the seed was planted, absolutely, because I wanted to say, I wonder if I could do something like that. And took me probably a good 4 years. Well, I'd say Ironman Arizona this previous year in 2015 was sort of my first real good full distance Ironman performance, and so it took me 5 years of complete devotion to the sport to even come somewhat close to that kind of a performance.
So after you get passed by Paul Ambrose, after you guys putting a couple hours on you, you're doing your first race, you finish your first triathlon. Was the light bulb go on when you came across that finish line? Like, I want more of this, and I want to be better at this.
Yeah, when I crossed the Ironman finish line, like the first few thoughts were, and I actually said this. I said that was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And obviously I was in severe carbohydrate deficit and severely dehydrated. But once I started to get the nutrition back in me, and I was like, wow, that is amazing. I can't even when I think about it now, really, when I go out there on the Queen K and do my bike ride, I'm like, this is a ridiculous feat to even accomplish, to even finish
do this thing,
let alone to try and do it really fast. Like, it's still you can't think about it too much, really, because it's just so far.
It's overwhelming. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's amazing. It's just a testament to the human spirit that we are able to do these things when we put our mind to them, and it's absolutely amazing.
September 8th, 2013, your first pro race, right? You win it.
Muskoka,
that all of a sudden changes everything. Your third pro race, St. George, 18th, 10 minutes back, but there was something about that because you're racing against the best guys in the world at that point.
Yeah, well, I had won the Muskoka race, and I sort of thought, all right, I got what it takes to compete on the world scene,
right.
And that may have been a bit premature, that thought, because then I went to St. George, and, Jan Frodeno, Sebastian Kienle, all the best guys are there, and I was a complete non-factor, lost time in every single discipline, and it was just a very, very humbling experience. But I think the worst part of the experience was I was just so miserable afterwards. Like, I didn't want to be around anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I probably was short with my family and stuff. And I came to a few days later, my mom and I were out, running through the beautiful terrain in St. George. And I was like, is this what you become? Like, this is what triathlon has become for you? Like, I got into this to make myself a better person. And now triathlon is making me a worse person. And so it was from that point on, I said, no more of this. I'm not doing it for external reasons. I'm not doing it to try and win the race or whatever. I'm just doing it to push myself to the best of my ability. And if I finish 18th, 10 minutes back, and that's the best I could do, then that's the best I could do. And I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to have a smile on my face and no problems. And it was when I made that change in my orientation that I actually started to excel a lot more.
How long into getting into the training and racing were you able to look yourself in the mirror? Like you said, even shaving, you had a hard time looking at yourself. When did you start to feel good about yourself?
I'd say it took probably about 6 months or so to get, in that time, my body really changed. I think it was about 120 pounds, and I probably got up to 140 or 150 in those couple of months. So I literally was watching myself transform before my eyes. And it really was a mental thing for the most part. Once I started to I guess, get the shame and that sort of thing
Yeah.
of abusing my body and doing all that stuff to myself, then I was able to look at myself in the mirror better. And but yeah, you know, I mean, triathlon has saved my life, really. So it's something I'm very grateful for.
The cool thing is that your third pro triathlon was at St. George, and then this year you won St. George.
Yeah, that was a very satisfying
And
experience.
Dad was there, right?
Yes, and once again, I went into it with the right attitude. Didn't matter. I could have finished 18th this time, second time round.
But you would have had a smile.
I would have had a smile on my face, and that's what I was most proud of in that race. Is it didn't matter. Though I did end up winning the race, and Sebastian Kienle and I had a great race from start to finish.
Yeah.
And of course, those types of races, you know, really, those are the ones you never forget. The ones where you had a great race. It didn't matter. None of that stuff mattered. I had the right attitude, and from then on, you know, I've won every race. Even the ones I've lost, I still won because I've had the right attitude.
Well, and you have won basically all the races. You won Panama 70.3, Oceanside 70.3, Texas 70.3. I mean, you've had you went 758. You've done a lot of great things, but you've been able to stay away from that negative attitude.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's and the more I do it, the more I realize that the best guys have that type of an attitude. That it's very, very. It's a personal endeavor. It's not for these external goals. Though generally, when you have that attitude, you can go for good external goals as well. You know, the guys who are winning the big races are doing it because they love it. They love to push themselves to the limit. They love competition, that sort of thing. And it's not for like, oh, I want to finish first place.
Right.
You know, it's not for that sort of stuff. It's just too hard. It's far too, like, you will cower in that Kona heat with 15K to go if you're doing it because, oh, I want to win some money or something like that. You know what I mean?
So, going into this race, you had your first time here at 14th place, and having a Canadian guy win here, that hasn't happened a little bit. What would it mean to you to win this race?
I mean, my goal is to one day win this race. I don't know if I'm there yet, but because it is a very you pay your dues here, and I think the island makes sure of it. But you know, for me, I'm doing this. A big motivation of mine is to prove that you can go from the bottom. You can go from, you know, being down in the dumps.
Yes.
And you can take yourself to the absolute top of something when you truly make a change for yourself and you devote yourself to something and you surround yourself with the right people. And so, you know, I can't even describe what it would mean because I mean, I feel like it's something bigger than myself that I'm after, and so I just want to prove that because I truly believe that you can go right to the top. You can make yourself a great person when you make the change for yourself.
You know, for a lot of folks out there who have dealt with, you know, substance abuse and don't really know where to go, right? Here you are, a living, breathing example of you can be at the bottom and you can turn your life around. Do you have people reaching out and saying, "Listen, Lionel, I don't know how to do it. I could use a little guidance." Does that happen?
I mean, I think the big thing that I have had that I've had people reach out before, and the biggest thing that I think you have to realize is you have to do it. You have to want it for yourself, because for the longest time, you know, obviously all your family and everything wants you to change, and they tell you, and sometimes you get forced into trying to change, and you have to want to change for yourself. And that is sort of when I finally saw it and said, I don't want to be this guy anymore. Then everything, the past sort of presented itself. But before then, you know, it's what that saying, you know, when you have ears to hear, you'll hear it. And I just couldn't hear anyone telling me what was wrong. And so, you know, actually what I find people reach out more is not necessarily the person themselves, but their loved ones saying, what the heck, what do we do?
Yes.
And I don't think there's much you can do other than to always offer an ear, always be there for them. And eventually I think a lot of people will work it out for themselves, but you have to be there, love them. And my parents were always there, always had a you know, unconditional shoulder to cry on, that sort of thing. And that's like the number one thing I think that you can do for your loved ones who might be struggling. When
you look back, are you amazed that mom and dad stuck by you as long as they did?
I'm not amazed, no. I mean, they certainly, it's been from start to finish very unconditional and always there for me. So. But, you know, I'm very grateful for that, of course.
Love it.
And yeah.
Lionel, best of luck on Saturday, and we'll be cheering for you. I
Thanks,
love to see what you've done for the sport.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Lionel Sanders, everybody, have a round of applause. Poncho Man, take us out.
Big island surfing, whoa, whoa, whoa. Big island surfing. Breakfast with Bob and brother Lionel. Oh.